I think the death of movie theater is a little bit overstated. I mean, obviously we see some movies like blowing up, every month there's something that connects, it's just hard. It's hard to get anybody to do anything nowadays. And so I feel like by doing these shows, we're getting a conversation going. We're getting a extra reason, a little bit of extra value to that movie ticket, because my podcasts are free with the purchased movie ticket. And it's an interesting conversation after. Like I said, you end up with a list of other movies to check out, and I get some audience participation going. A lot of the times I have prizes from the studios to give out for anybody who actually gets involved in the conversation. And so I feel like it's just like an extra reason to go out to the movies.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Film Goes podcast. Today I'm with the one and only David Rosen. He's a podcaster and a composer. So thank you for being on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here.
I've been seeing you, all your live shows that you're doing now, when you're like, your podcast called the Piecing It Together podcast, and you watch a movie, and then right after you like sit down and have a conversation with other artists, filmmakers, really anyone, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's something I've been doing it like as an online podcast for like 6 years now. And those, we have a little more time to, prepare and all that stuff, plan everything, plan the whole conversation out. But yeah, the live ones are just like this kind of like electrifying, fun way to do it, where it's like, I don't really know exactly what I'm going to talk about before I walk into that theater, but as soon as those credits roll, I set all my stuff up, and I have this panel like picked out of awesome guests, filmmakers, musicians, comedians, anything like that. And we have the conversation right there. And for people who haven't listened to Piecing It Together before, the whole idea behind the show is we take a look at a movie through the lens of what other movies might have inspired it. So we will take a look at the film and discuss the themes, the ideas, the various filmmaking styles, anything where we kind of recognize things that have maybe been done before. And we definitely do not see that as a bad thing. It's not like we're not talking like cliches or anything like that. We're just talking about everything was inspired by something that came before. It doesn't matter if it's film, if it's literature, if it's music, everything was inspired by something. And we're kind of, figuring out what those are. And it ends up with a great list of other things to check out after.
So you said you started 6 years ago. So where did that idea come from, and how did you start?
So before Piecing It Together, I was co-hosting a politics podcast called Bird Road with my best friend. And it was politics and culture. And I was always trying to push the conversation to the culture side and just, hey, you heard about that new Marvel movie that came out? And like whatever, anything entertainment related. And finally, I was like, I really probably should just start my own thing. Like as a composer and as somebody with an audio background, I had all the stuff. I had the microphones. I had the editing knowledge, and so I was just like, why am I not doing a movie podcast at this point? I even was going to do a film review website at one point, just written reviews years ago. I also wrote for the UNLV Rebel Yell back in like 2000 to 2007, somewhere in that range.
You're aging yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm probably the oldest person you've had on the show so far. But so I've always wanted to do stuff talking about film. I just never really thought I'd do a podcast about it. And 6 years later, here we are.
Damn, yeah, that's cool. So like, how did the concept come together?
I found myself always talking about movies in that format. It's like, this meets this. Like, that's kind of the way that I would describe a movie. And I feel like that's just a really fun jumping off point. I feel like, there's different levels to any form of communication, any kind of conversation about movies, like how deep you want to get into it, what aspects you want to talk about with the movie, whether it's the story, the plot, the themes, the filmmaking, any of it. And that is always a way to kind of jump off in all different kind of directions, because it's like, if it does this in a way like this other movie, you could talk about how that movie did it, how this filmmaker did it. And it's always a fun jumping off point.
When did you start doing the live ones?
The live ones, so I did one in 2019 at the Sin City Horror Fest on Las Vegas filmmaker Michael Keane's film The Head. And at that point, I was just like immediately like, I got to continue doing these. And then 2020 happened, and I kind of put an end to that for a little while.
Yeah.
But then in 2022, I had the opportunity to do one out in California. And I jumped at the opportunity. I went and I did it. And the people that helped put that on had connections with Maya Cinemas here in Las Vegas, and they put me in touch with them, and we set up a whole thing. And then I did one with them. I did a second with them, just, random just bookings. And then like 3 or 4 months later, we booked 4 in a row. And we've been doing pretty much 4 in a row at a time ever since then. I've been doing them monthly at Maya Cinemas. And then at the beginning of last year, I ended up doing one at Downtown Cinemas. At the time, it was Art House. They recently changed over their name. But that has also been pretty much once a month. So I've been doing like 2 a month now between those 2 theaters.
Okay.
And I did something at the Beverly in August, and hoping to do more theaters as well. But Maya Cinemas and Downtown Cinemas are both awesome partners in this.
So like, what was like the process of? I mean, it just kind of connected from that first one, or did you start reaching out to people, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was reaching out, but you know how it is when you do anything entertainment related. It's like you send 10 emails and maybe you get 1 response, you know what I mean? And so I've had conversations with other theaters, and they're slowly but surely rolling, but nothing quite yet. But once the thing happened with Maya, it just kind of, I started to prove myself as somebody who could put together a show and have a fun, meaningful, worthwhile conversation with a bunch of really cool guests after the show. And then that kind of enticed these other theaters to want to do stuff. And it's just doing one thing kind of leads to another.
Yeah. And are like, I mean, I'm guessing it's helping them like bring people in.
Exactly.
You have like audience that comes and watches the movie with.
Absolutely. And we're starting to really get some regulars that show up. And that's the thing. I mean, movie theaters, it's, I think the death of movie theaters is a little bit overstated. I mean, obviously we see some movies like blowing up, every month there's something that connects, it's just hard. It's hard to get anybody to do anything nowadays. And so I feel like by doing these shows, we're getting a conversation going. We're getting a extra reason, a little bit of extra value to that movie ticket, because my podcasts are free with the purchased movie ticket. And, it's an interesting conversation after. Like I said, you end up with a list of other movies to check out, and I get some audience participation going. A lot of the times I have prizes from the studios to give out for anybody who, actually gets involved in the conversation. And so, I feel like it's just like an extra reason to go out to the movies.
Yeah, that's fun, man. Yeah, I was there for one of them with Lizette.
Yeah.
For me, I think it was like hard to, because I think she told me the concept, but it was hard for me to like, how do you think of the movie as you're watching it? Is that all you're thinking about? Are you able to enjoy the film?
People tell me all the time since they've been on my show that's how they're thinking about movies all the time now, ever since they did my show. I still 1,000% enjoy movies. It's my favorite thing to do, watching movies. But I do find myself thinking, oh, if I do an episode on this one, I'm going to talk about that one thing. And during the live shows, it's definitely a little bit of a different experience. There's a little bit of
because you're thinking about it.
Yeah, and you have to, because otherwise I'm going to go sit up in front of everybody and just not have anything to say. So it definitely kind of changes the dynamic. But like just this past weekend, I went and saw The Substance, which is amazing. Crazy. Everybody should see. It's so good. But I'm going to do an episode on that. It's going to be coming out in like a week or 2 now. I don't know what time this is going up, but I wasn't sitting there just thinking puzzle pieces the whole time. That's what we call a movie that inspired the movie we just watched. But I wasn't sitting there thinking puzzle pieces the whole time. I was just enjoying the movie, but definitely had some sparks in the back of my head. And, as soon as I'm walking to the car, I'm typing them out, furiously so I don't forget. But the live setting though definitely changes things, because I got to just walk up there as soon as the credits roll and have that conversation. And, it's sometimes it's tough, but sometimes, you know what the movie's about going in. So you might have a few ideas, and then watching the movie, it confirms your suspicions. Like, oh, seems like it's going to be a little bit like that one thing. I mean, The Substance, you think of Cronenberg or something like that, some body horror, crazy stuff like that. And so like, you've got some jumping off points already to kind of think about. And then it's just kind of like, well, where can I come up with some really interesting ones or some deep pulls or something like that? And then that's when you have to start like really kind of cranking the
for sure. So your podcast is all audio, right? Or do you do video?
Yes. I have been setting up a camera at the live ones, but just for clips. Just to say it straight up, I hate editing video. Like, I do it as a means to an end sometimes, but I like editing audio. Especially with my show, I like to edit a really tight conversation. I cut all the crap out of it, and I make it a nice, little, package. It's something that's like really enjoyable to listen to. With video, it's just a pain to do that, and so I just don't want to. But yeah, I do record clips for like the social and all that stuff, and I use Riverside to record my online recorded episodes, and that automatically records the video. So I do the same thing with that. I'll cut little clips out of that, but yeah, I just have no interest in like turning it into a full on video podcast. Yeah,
okay. I think it'd be interesting though, because I mean you're in the theater. It'd be like a interesting way to do it.
Yeah.
So if you've been doing it for so long, how have you seen it like change and progress, other than like the live shows?
Yeah, I mean the live shows have been the big thing for me. I mean, actually, it's funny you're bringing up video because I feel like there's such a pressure right now to put video. Yeah, and really doing those clips for social have been, that's kind of been an addition lately. Like I was doing it for a while, but I was kind of very half-assedly doing it for a while. I've been doing it a lot more serious lately, and I still have no intention of doing the full show that way, but I have been at least doing 2 clips per episode instead of like, oh, maybe I'll, cut one clip if I have some free time this weekend. But, so I've been like, actually doing it. But yeah, I feel like video is like so big right now, and I don't like it. But, I'm happy people like you are out here doing video shows. It's certainly fun, and I know people love them, but yeah, it's not for me. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, speaking of 2020 and the pandemic and all that, like everybody got themselves a microphone and a webcam and all that stuff. And whether or not their podcast continued after that point, they're at least set up, and it really opens the pool for potential guests. And, I've had, we just hit episode 400 of Piecing It Together. It's probably like 200 guests at this point, 200 different people from around the world. And yeah, it's just like an ever expanding pool of people. And I mean, podcasts, video podcasts, like it's all just so popular still. People are out there and they have the equipment and they want to make use of it so they can come join a podcast like mine or somebody else's and talk about whatever the topic is.
Did you see it grow once you started posting clips? Was there a bump, or has it been in the same like trajectory?
It's still so hard to say. Okay. Because like it depends on the movie. It depends on the guest. It depends on the week. It's just like so random. But yeah, I do think it has had some positive impact though, for sure. Okay. And I've definitely had a bigger presence on like Instagram and TikTok, whereas before I was mostly just on Twitter and Facebook.
Oh, okay. Cool. And so you're also a composer. Let's talk about the composing. You told me you work at a record store, or your parents own a record store?
Yeah, Wax Trax Records here in Las Vegas. That's where I'm at during the day, and then doing all of this stuff by night, But yeah, Wax Trax Records, we've been here since 1998. We up and moved the whole store from Pennsylvania before that point, which is where I went to school and everything. Went to high school. I went to UNLV here. But as a composer, I've been scoring films for like 15 to 20 years now, and I've scored a number of features, short films, commercials. I have music and television, stuff like that as well. I also put out albums of instrumental music. It's very hard to classify. Genre is kind of meaningless nowadays, but generally speaking, electronica with a lot of alternative influence to it and film score influence to it, because of course, as a composer, but I have, am I up to 7 albums now? I think 7 albums of instrumental music. And I also make these silly, funny, goofy songs about my pets. That is a side project called The Pup Pups. I'm actually very excited about that right now because I'm about to release a 3rd album of that stuff, which is just the biggest waste of time. Sounds? It's they bark and meow and all that stuff, but they also sing. I do voices for each of them, and it's ridiculous.
Okay,
but
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. It allows me to kind of play around in different styles. Like it's like, maybe I'll make like a blues rock song about my cat making muffins. Like, so it's like, it allows me to just play in different styles instead of just my ultra serious electronica alternative film score music. So it's really fun. And like I said, the 3rd album's coming out, and I'm going to be putting up like, for each album, I do a special thing where I open pre-orders, and for 1 month from the start of pre-orders, anyone who pre-orders, they get registered for their pet to be included in a super extended bonus song that I record right before the album's finished. The last one was 13 minutes long
Oh
of
my
just me
God.
naming pet names. Like, it's so stupid. It's the dumbest thing in the world.
Oh my God, that sounds interesting though.
I love
Okay.
it.
So, did you go to school for music, or what did you go to school for?
I didn't go to school for anything. I went to UNLV. I was there just constantly for like 7 years, and I wasn't there for any particular reason.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in the school paper. Speaking of film and stuff like that, I was on the TV station, the UNLV TV. There was a film review show. Rest in peace, Francisco Menendez. But I was on his show, and nobody asked me if I was still enrolled in any classes,
Oh,
but I just kept going and kept doing the show. But yeah, so I was reviewing movies for the UNLV TV at that point and for the Rebel Yell until everybody was like, wait a minute, what classes are you in? I was like, none. But yeah, no, I was just doing all kinds of music stuff and movie stuff and communications journalism, just anything.
How did you pick up composing then?
That's just something I just always wanted to do. Like, somewhere around like the end of senior year of high school, I started kind of just playing around with keyboards and stuff like that. I was trying to get into making industrial music. That was kind of like my thing. 9 Inch Nails, Ministry, like those were my big influences at the moment. And none of the music I was working on actually sounded like any of that. It sounded like hip hop beats.
Oh, okay.
And I went on a long, just kind of tangent of a career. I produced a bunch of rappers here in Las Vegas. I did some comedy rap stuff. Long story. We're not going to get into that today. But yeah, I did all kinds of different stuff. A lot of hip hop. I produced a couple of local artists and stuff like that. And just really all of it was just an excuse to make music. Because I've always felt like the number one way to do anything is to just do that thing and just you grow from doing. And so even if I was working on making beats for this rapper or making these funny songs over here, it's like it was all learning the craft. And so all of that kind of came together when one of my friends was like, hey, I have a friend, he's a filmmaker, he needs music for his film, do you think you could do it? And I said sure, even though I didn't know if I really could, and I did it and it came out good. And then I got another gig and it just keeps snowballing.
Nice. Did you do you play any instruments, or is it all electronic?
Yeah, I mean, I play a little bit of keyboard, a little bit of guitar, a little bit of bass, but it's all a little bit. It's, everything I could kind of put together in the studio.
And what kind of, not genre, but what kind of like, I guess, genre or style do you like to create when you're creating film scores?
Yeah, I mean, I try to do everything, and I do a little bit of everything, but I do tend to gravitate towards darker stuff, whether that's thrillers or horror.
So like droney stuff?
Yeah, a lot of like droney stuff, mysterious, a lot of like creepy kind of things and those kind of tones. Yeah.
Okay. And what's your favorite genre when it comes to films?
That's so hard because I mean I really love like dark comedies and stuff like that. I mean I'm a big Coen Brothers guy, but it's hard because I like everything, I mean, this year I love Godzilla X Kong, like I love everything.
That one was terrible.
Oh, it's so good. So good.
So, you've been like doing this podcast for a while and you love film. Have you gotten into filmmaking at all? Is that something that you like thought about it other than composing?
I mean, so here's the thing when it comes to filmmaking, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily be a good director. So it's not something I've ever really kind of wanted to do. But that being said, I have written some of my own music videos for my instrumental music. And I've had them created by some really, really talented directors who brought them to life. And I think they came out so amazing and I'm so proud of them. Some of them have been in film festivals, won some awards and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm currently working with a stop motion animator on one for an album that I'm putting out next year. And then that's also an original idea of mine. But sometimes the music videos also just kind of come from the directors. And I'm just like, hey, here's a song. Does this spark any idea in you? If so, let's go. Let's do something, And I'm always looking for people to collaborate that way with. I have so much music, This year, actually, speaking of my music, I'm doing this ridiculous thing that I'm calling 24 for 2024. And ever since the first week of January, I've been releasing a new single on the first and third Friday of every month of the year. So 24 songs total. And that's in between two albums because I put out an album in 2023 and I'm putting out an album in 2025. So It's like almost 100 songs in like 3 years, But I just have a lot of stuff to put out, you know. I mean, really, the pandemic was a very, very busy time. I was just sitting there in my studio making stuff, you know, and now I'm finishing it all up and putting it out.
That's dope, man. Have you made any videos for the cat stuff and the dog stuff?
Yes. They're all just like home footage based videos with effects, you know, just to make them a little more interesting. I would love to make an animated video of one of those songs. I have ideas too, but it's hard to find animators, you know. But
expensive too.
It's super expensive. So I kind of have to allocate my resources towards my instrumental music. That's like my real career. But I would love to make a more real video for the Pup Pups at some point. That would be really fun. Like I said, I've got this new album coming out, so who knows? Maybe it'll happen. Although I am working on my own, you know, because I make some of my own videos too. Like I said, I hate video editing, but I do it when I need to. And so I'm making a couple of videos for the new album.
Okay, that's dope. And what is the like you said, electronic for the new one, or like what kind of alternative?
I mean the new Pup Pups album.
The Pup Pups album.
Yeah, no, I do have a new one of the instrumental stuff, and that one actually, I can speak specifically to the genre because I've said I gravitate towards the darker stuff, but with my albums, I try to do like a pretty big range of music, like everything from electronic and industrial, like I originally got into, to stuff that's more alternative, more film score, more ambient, all over the place. This next album, I'm kind of just pushing into my most dark tendencies, which you can tell by watching me talk. I'm not like a very dark guy, but like that's what I like musically. And my favorite band is The Cure, and so like that's where my influences are. But this album, I'm going like straight up dark, mysterious, just heavy, just like, and so that's what you could expect from that one. There's not going to be any really upbeat light music on this one. It's going to be super bleak and dark, and I can't wait.
Do you because you have a lot of music, would people like hit you up and like, oh, I really like the song, can I use it for a film? Or would you prefer to do original?
I mean, I like both, honestly. I've worked with filmmakers where they just need some music and it's quick turnaround and everything. It's like, well, this could work. And they're like, hell yeah, this could work. And, and it does. And so we license it out and that's it, But yeah, I love scoring films too. I'm actually about to start on, I've collaborated with this filmmaker from New York named Chris Johnson. I've scored 8 of his shorts now and 2 of his features. I'm about to start on the 9th short. And then he's shooting another feature that I'm going to be scoring. Probably starting that like January or something like that. But yeah, so it's like I'm constantly working on stuff that I'm scoring. I'm constantly working on just music that I like and that I just, make because as I'm kind of playing around and figuring out ideas, I like how they come out. And then that stuff might actually work for something too.
That's cool, man. So you got the podcast, the live podcast. What you got coming up?
Well, in October, I'm doing 2 live podcasts. On October 3rd, I'm doing Joker Filet Ado at Maya Cinemas, and then Terrifier 3 at Downtown Cinemas. After that, I also already have Gladiator 2 at Maya Cinemas in November and Heretic at Downtown Cinemas in November. And I'm already talking to them about December 1, so we'll see. I can't quite mention those yet. But yeah, definitely October and November, we got more live shows. I'm also going to be up in Utah at the Film Quest Film Festival. We haven't set the schedule yet, but I'm going to be doing some live shows at the film festival, which is something I'd love to do more of. I'd love to do something at some festivals
other
here in
filmmakers,
Vegas.
like other filmmakers' films, and then talking about them.
Yeah,
damn, that's kind of like for the filmmaker might be a little nervous.
But they're gonna get a cool podcast out of it.
That's true, though. That's true. And then you said it's like people are hitting you up now to be on it. So, yeah. Can they like contact you or?
Absolutely, yeah. So Piecing It Together can be found on all the social medias at Piecing Pod, and that's where you can usually find me most. I also have my music, bydavidrosen.com is where you can find that, and on all the socials at that as well. I have a YouTube channel, Music by David Rosen, for all my music videos and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, like I said, nowadays I split my time between podcasting and music, so it's, I'm all over the place, but I tend to be doing the podcast almost more, even though it's really kind of equal. So,
that's cool, man. Well, check your stuff out. Check out the animal pet music. That's what I'm curious about.
The Pup Pups.
Yeah. All right. See you guys next time. Peace.